My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very excited about the guests for this afternoon. We have a person that you should know, in the person of Colonel Roy A. Merrell. He's a retired Air Force colonel, and his last position in Air Force was Senior Communication Officer. Good evening, Colonel Merrell. Merrell. We're very happy that you have taken time from your busy schedule literally to be with us on Community Forum to let Lake County know who you are. Okay. Lake County is, the Comcast audience is approximately 100,000 people, but Lake County is probably 750 to 800,000 people. But if you have not been known all over the world, you will be after this program, because our audience can go to drbrooks.tv and they can get the program in Japan, Australia, or wherever. But you were, your home of record is, I understand, Gulfport, Mississippi.
Correct.
I'm near there. I was born in Lexington, Mississippi, which is a little further west there. And you have also a unique wife, Juanita Elizabeth. She's a retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, right?
Right.
Oh, this is fantastic. I want, first of all, to tell our listening audience, first of all, a little bit about your personal and professional background, and then I'd like to know what piqued your interest in the military.
Oh, what piqued my interest? All right, I'll start from the beginning.
Okay.
Born in Gulfport, Mississippi, went to school, graduated in 1972 from Gulfport East High School. Upon graduation, I enlisted in the U.S. Navy in 1972, September 1972, and I served in the Navy 2 years, almost 2 years, because I was released early from the Navy. And during that time that I was in, my job was an administrative yeoman, which is another name for clerk.
Okay.
But I did that in the Navy for 18 months and released early. And when I was released, I got a chance to go back to school. And going back to school, I went to the University of Southern Mississippi, which is in Hattiesburg. I graduated from the University of Southern Mississippi in 1977, November 1977. So 3 years of college, I was done, and I got commissioned because I was in the Air Force ROTC unit. So that was something I decided to do. Having served in the Navy, I decided Air Force would probably be a better place for me. So I enjoyed that part of it. And upon commissioning, my first duty station was Chanute Air Force Base, which was in Rantoul, Illinois. And I say was because it's no longer there. It was closed down in 1989.
Okay.
But that was the first duty station where I went in. I was trained in aircraft maintenance, trained as an aircraft maintenance officer, not a wrench turner. So my job was to manage, enlisted troops.
Well, tell us about Gulfport, about your family.
Okay, if you want to know about my family, I'm, I guess, the third of 14 altogether, 14 children.
Wow.
I'm third from the bottom, so 2 younger brothers, but there were 14 of us. Born to Willie Merrell, who was my father, and Willie Mae Merrell, who was my mother. So funny how that worked out, but yes, that's a little bit about my family. There were 8 boys and 6 girls.
Now, what encouraged you to join the military?
Uh, well, I guess the biggest encouragement came from my mother. It was something that she always wanted us to do. She wanted all of us to go to school.
Okay.
And the thing she impressed on me the most was, if I can go back and go to school and get my degree, you can too. So I want you to go to school. So after graduation, it was either go to college or go in the military. And of course, I chose going in the Navy at that time. So a decision that I don't regret to this day.
So in other words, you're not the first generation graduated.
Oh, no. 14 children, 12 of us have, 13 of us have been to college. 12 of us have bachelor's,
Wow.
master's, and 1 doctorate.
Wow.
So, yes. And my mother, after raising 14 kids, went back to school herself and got her degree from the University of Southern Mississippi, along with 2 other brothers and a sister and myself.
So the impact, your family had a great impact upon your life, then, right?
Very much so. Now, my father didn't graduate from high school, but he made sure all of us did that and get as far as we could. So that was his one goal, to make sure all of us got educated, because he just said, I don't want you to work as hard as I have to work.
Okay. I would like to know about, now we know about your educational background, but what's some of the challenging experiences that you had in the military, and how did you confront them?
I guess, well, when I think about it, starting out, it wasn't challenging at first, but as you continue to stay in and get promoted, the responsibilities increase by a lot. So when I started out, I went to, I guess, a unit at Edwards Air Force Base, which was a flight test center. And I was there about 2 years, and after being stationed there as an aircraft maintenance officer, I went to the Philippines.
Okay.
And while in the Philippines, I was assigned to 13th Air Force, and I was an Air Force briefer. But during that time, I got a chance to go back to school, and I got a master's in education from the University of the Philippines. So to make sure I didn't have a lot of dead time or whatever, I did a regular 8 to 10 hour shift, and then I went to school in the evenings.
Wow.
For the whole time I was there.
Now, you also attended War College too, right?
Air War College and Air Command and Staff. Air Command and Staff, just a little bit about that. It's an intermediate grade for majors in the Air Force to go back and be trained professionally for a year, and it's at the master's level. So I got a chance to do that in 1990 and 1991. And when offered the opportunity to go back, I was selected to go to Air War College. And out of 5,000, they picked 250, and I was one of those 250 that got a chance to go back for senior officers.
Okay, tell us about congratulations.
Thank
Tell
you.
us about the road to colonel. Now, you mentioned that I'm sure for African Americans, colonels were not plentiful then, right?
Oh, no, not by a long shot. Well, for me, I guess after making major, starting out as a lieutenant, second lieutenant, first lieutenant, you become a captain.
Okay.
I was a captain for about, almost 7-8 years.
Okay.
Then I made major, and the transition between major and lieutenant colonel was another 5 years for me, and then colonel ended up being about six years. So it's not something everybody can get, but by the same token, having those professional schools, Air Commands and Staff College and Air War College, those were the things that kind of helped set you apart and designate you for specific assignments and for upward mobility.
And we're talking about 33 years in the
Yes.
military.
Yes. 30.
Now you had probably not a desire to go that long when you first went in, right?
No, I did not. Never had any idea, ambitions to go that long. I knew I wanted to go and serve, but it's almost like a job. If it's something you enjoy doing, and I did, you stay until, you either retire from it or, you decide to find something new to go do. And I enjoyed what I was doing because all the way through the military, I probably had about 4 or 5 different career fields that I got a chance to go into, and that made it that much more, I guess, important to me to just stay because I wanted to learn to do something else.
And as your promotional opportunities, became that kind of.
Oh, yes, yes.
Encourage you to stay in too.
By far, because it lets you know that, number one, they see a potential in you.
Okay.
And, of course, you have senior officers that are there to kind of mentor you along the way. And I had those, and I'm grateful that I had them because they pretty much told you, okay, you're at this point in your career, this is what you need to be doing. Make sure you go to this school, that school, make sure you get your master's. And those were things that I made sure I did. And it's almost like checking a box in a sense, but yeah, that was important.
So counseling was a great asset there. And for youngsters in high school, trying to determine, because here in the Great Lakes area, you had the Navy and you also had Fort Sheridan at one time.
I remember that, yes.
And of course the youngsters have to be counseling about what it takes to succeed in the different Army or Navy. And you had you went to Navy first, and you had a chance to determine that Air Force was a better field for you.
It was by a long shot, because in the Navy it was 8 months out and 6 months in, that rotation, and that rotation didn't work for me, or I didn't like having to always, deploy for 8 months and then come back in for 4 to 6 months and then deploy again. And your first 4 years, at least enlisted, that's all you did. So, yeah, after 2 years, I was ready to try something else.
But tell us about the different experiences between the enlisted ranks and the officers' ranks.
The differences are huge. Having been enlisted, by being an administrative yeoman, I worked directly with officers, so I interacted with them daily, and that's who I worked for. I saw what they did, and I knew in terms of, if they went to the Naval Academy or they went through Naval ROTC or they went to officer training school to get their commission. And I just talked to all of them and just kind of got a feel, and I said, okay, I think I can do that, and I'd rather do that. So, it's a pecking order. And even though I got promoted in 18 months to E4, which is a non-commissioned officer, I decided if I'm going to stay, I need to, get a commission, go to school and get a commission. So that was my goal.
Right. We talk about characteristics that bring the most success as any military member.
Okay.
What are some of the characteristics there?
I kind of alluded to them. The things that were successful for me and most of, my colleagues that became colonels and some general officers all of those schools, professional military schools, are always important. And with the military schools, you didn't have to do it in the same service, because you have a choice. Like for Air Command and Staff College, the Army has an they have an Army Command and Staff College.
Okay.
And the Navy has one. Same thing with the War College. In each one of those services, they all have their intermediate school and they have their senior service school. So you have an opportunity to apply to either of those. And that's what they look for, because the longer you stay in, the higher you go up, everything kind of moves, toward like a pyramid. It gets narrow at the top, and it's only room for so much at the top. So as you continue to go up, there are quite a few colonels, but I can tell you there are even fewer generals.
Okay.
So
Right.
that was the thing that I think that was most significant for me, that, just having seen it, lived it, decided that was something I wanted to do. That was my goal.
Mm-hmm. Well, as it could become narrow, as you go to the top, you have to be skilled probably in strategic planning, right?
Oh.
How important is strategic planning?
That's how we go to war. That's how we do what we do. For just about any military operation you can think of, we have plans that are on the shelf. We keep them on the shelf. They're updated as needed. And those are things that, if we have to go into any theater, whether it's in, the Far East, it's in Europe, it's in Africa, we have plans, this is what we need to do to be able to go and do and operate. And it depends on what our missions are, because we have many different missions. One of the biggest ones, in my opinion, that a lot of people aren't familiar with is humanitarian missions that we do. And we've done those through earthquakes, through mudslides. We've done it through flooding in the Philippines, you name it. And even when you think about it, we helped Iran when they had an earthquake, believe it or not, when I was at the Pentagon back in about 2003, I think, if memory serves me right.
Well, we have to remember that if we fail to plan, we plan to fail, right?
There you go. There you go. And the training we get in the military, it's always one of those things. We have directors for everything we do, and those are things that we have to almost live by. It's almost like a Bible for us. We have to know what our regulations are. We have to know this is how we operate, going into any location, that this is how we conduct operations.
You mentioned the Bible too, and I'm sure you're active in the church too. It's one verse I can't forget. I guess I will try. Grant me the serenity to change the things that I can, the courage to wait a minute, I got it. As you get old like I am, 3 things get away from you. The first thing that goes to memory. I don't remember the other 2.
Okay.
But what God granted me the serenity to change the things I can, the courage. I have to move on and come back to serenity to change the things that I can, the courage to change, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Right.
But I'll get that as it'll come back up, But I would like to say this though, that there are 3 types of people in the world. I remember this one. There are those that make things happen. There are those that watch things happen, and those that wonder what's happening.
Okay.
And I have to give you the credit that you are a person that make things happen. Now,
Okay.
if you weren't, then you wouldn't be where you are now.
Okay.
When you got into different positions, you made things happen.
I didn't have a choice in the sense that if I wanted to stay in, you had to do those things to be able to get promoted. So
Okay, right,
yes.
right. Um, Now, strategic planning is no different in cities, states, and the federal government too. Strategic planning is extremely important in each one of those agencies, right?
You have to have it, because if you don't, you mentioned it earlier, you're planning to fail. And when you talk strategic, you're talking about long range. You have to be able to look 5 to 10 years down range and know this is where you want to be. So if you want to make sure you're executing what you need to execute, you need to be able to plan for it. And you have short-term planning, which is something that can happen in, I guess, a couple of years, and then you have it at the 5-year point, and then you have it again at the 10-year point. And at each one of those points, you go back and you look at where you are and decide, if you met those criterias, and if you haven't, you go back, you redo or do what needs to be done so you can move on to the next level.
Fantastic. Now, there are some memorable events in your military life, and and one of the examples of 9/11 while you were serving in the Pentagon. You mentioned that you were serving in the Pentagon.
Right.
But tell us about that experience at 9/11.
Well, I can start by saying I was assigned there in December of 2000. And 2000 and 2001, just routine in terms of learning the job, getting a chance to go in and work, on the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Logistics Directorate, and then work in an operations center where we worked 24/7. We had somebody always working. So any day of the week, holidays included, we're always open. Because at the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they have visibility around everything that's going on in all of our services, in the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, the Marines. They know exactly what we're doing at all times. And being in the Logistics Directorate, we had visibility on seeing all the operations that were going around. And logistics is a big part of that, because logistics is basically what allows us to be able to go where we go and do what we do and operate, because we have everything we need to be able to operate and do what we need to do as long as we need to do it.
I mentioned that I have to write things down now more to rely on my memory. But God grant me the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right.
I wasn't satisfied until I found that,
Okay, and I'll go back and finish up. So after being there that time, and little did we know, all the way up, working through September, it was just regular, normal operations. And, and then on 9/11, where we worked, we had televisions on all the time, because we had to be able to see and know what was going on.
Yeah.
And news was a part of that, the 24/7 news cycle that we watch. And we were doing our regular jobs and all at our desks. And our boss, Colonel Reheiser, I'll never forget it, came in. He said, "Hey guys, let's go to the conference room right now." Looked like, one of the buildings have been hit in New York. And he said it had to be a big plane, because he flies big planes, and he said it was up high. So we immediately go to the conference room, and there were about, I guess, 14 to 16 of us that was there on duty at the time. And we were watching, and we weren't there, 15, 20 minutes just watching the news. We see another one go through the building, and we all looked and say, did that just happen? And, one of the guys, I'll never forget Glenn for saying this. He was another lieutenant colonel, Air Force type, that said, wow. He said, if that just happened, then we're a target. We're next. And it wasn't 30 minutes after he said, we're next, you heard an explosion. The building shook, the lights went out, and the emergency lights came up, and everything just started filling up with smoke. And, the first thing most folks thought was, wow, the Pentagon got hit. And we were watching all this happen, and, of course, we did what we needed to do. We dispersed like we needed to, and we all stayed at our station until we were relieved. And, our boss says, hey, if it gets too bad, they'll come get us. They know where we are. It got bad. So we immediately had to go down about 3 levels to the basement and in a vault, and that's where we worked from, for me, probably like 21 hours straight. That's where I worked till I was relieved, like about 3 in the morning. But everything you saw on TV, it was just unbelievable. And I got a chance to walk out during that time because we had to eat. Everything was closed at that time.
Right.
And, seeing it, watching it, I didn't know what to make of it other than, wow, this had to be a big plane that came in and hit. But we worked through it. And, it was one of those things. I guess the Pentagon itself, Pentagon meaning its 5 sides, we were directly across from the impact. And, so when that happened, it was just unbelievable that, we had to stay there and work. And you saw on TV a lot of people running away from the Pentagon.
Right.
But I could tell you there was a lot of us that stayed where we were supposed to be, and we did our job.
It's my understanding that the plane was diverted, otherwise it
Yes.
would have come right into the building.
Well, where it was trying to go, they have a landing pad where helicopters come in, bringing in general officers, distinguished visitors or whatever that comes to the Pentagon. And they saw this pad and everything else. So, yeah, they were thinking, oh, if we hit this part of the building, this is where most of the senior officers and everyone are. But just so happened where that location was not where all the general officers or the chief of staff, joint chiefs of staff were, because we had been moved. And it was a good thing we were moved because we weren't where they thought we were. So I was in the chief of staff area. So like I said, from where it came in, we were directly across from it. So needless to say, it burned for almost 5-6 days before they completely got it out. But it's still there, and we still did our job.
It's amazing that something like that would be allowed to happen.
You would think, but, we learned a lot during that time. And, what happened then, could it happen today?
As sophisticated as we are.
Yes, it could, but I doubt it, because we're ready for something like that. Having it happen once kind of put us on an alert that, we will not let this happen again. Mm-hmm. And with everything they have, the Pentagon is protected. You don't have to worry about that happening again. Trust me.
Like when the Japanese planes came over in
Pearl Harbor, right?
41.
Okay.
That it was. I guess that was a surprise that we just weren't ready. Huh?
Not so much we weren't ready, it was hard for them to believe that could even happen. Right. And when it happened, because it happened early in the morning.
Yeah.
Dawn, everybody's just getting up, waking up. So, yeah, exactly.
And what did we have? There was a young sailor by the name of Dory Miller, right?
Yes.
I think this is, I'm not positive, someone told me that his mother had boys, and she wanted a girl, and so she
Okay.
named her Doris. His
Okay.
real name is Doris Miller on birth
Okay.
certificate, but they call him Dory Miller.
Okay.
Now, what was exciting about him?
Being in the Navy, I guess I know a little bit about that because there's Pearl Harbor movies, of course, but
Okay.
Knowing a little bit about that, he was able to do something because he was trained as a cook.
Okay.
And being a cook, you didn't get a chance to get on the guns, to fire the guns, the weapons on the ship, and try to shoot anything down. But my understanding of that was when all of that happened, he decided it was time for him to do what he needed to do. And he saw an open gun and he went to it and started shooting.
Amazing.
And yes.
No training.
No training. And just start firing, and sooner or later he start knocking them down.
Mm-hmm. And the Great Lakes recognized him by having barracks named after him on the base.
Okay.
I wonder how many people
Realize
locally
that.
know about that.
Right, right. I wasn't familiar with that until you mentioned it, and I'm on and off of Great Lakes quite a bit.
Well,
but, you know, I'm not going around where all of the barracks are located, so I only know the ones I pass by and I see when I am on base.
Amazing. Well, now the role of the, we talk about the Navy, you were there, you were in the Air Force most of the time. What about the role of the Tuskegee Airmen during World War II?
Tuskegee Airmen were named after the location where most of them were trained, and they came into being because Eleanor Roosevelt knew that the military was segregated and wanted to do something about it. And from her husband, she made it a point that, you know, we need to desegregate the military and allow, you know, everyone to have a fair chance to serve in any position. And that's why that school was started at Tuskegee. And she basically, from what I've been told, and this was, you know, getting it almost firsthand from one of the, I guess, instructors that was down there when I got a chance to meet him when I was in the Philippines. He said she came down and she was so impressed with the flying school that she went up with, you know, some of the trainees just to prove that, you know, we can fly and fight just like everybody else.
That's amazing.
It was.
Amazing.
And Tuskegee, that institute has put out more black African-American pilots than, you know, well, than any other ROTC or any other school, I'll put it that way. That's where most of our general officers came from. They were in the Air Force.
Wow.
At that time.
Wow. You know, since you mentioned about officers, let's go back to Great Lakes Naval Base.
Okay.
We have the first officers trained in the Navy, the first African-American officers, were, they call them the Golden 13.
Okay.
The first, and every sailor, male or female, has to come through those that facility when they come in the Navy. Now, these are some officers that were tested and made the highest scores.
Right. Okay.
And the administration couldn't believe the scores are so high, so they retested them and found out that they had higher scores the second time than the first. This is amazing how African Americans have to prove
over and over again. Yes.
That we can help. And I'm great that you mentioned about Eleanor Roosevelt. She was it was a white female that led the drive for the NAACP to, I think her name was Ovington, Mary Ovington, I believe it was. So white females has taken an active part in the civil rights movement.
Exactly.
You know.
Okay.
But one of these days we have to learn how to live together.
Right.
We're going to reach that.
Okay.
So in other words, we all from the same dust.
There you go.
Dust art thou, and dust
We'll go,
returneth,
right.
right? So we came naked, and we're going to leave the same way we came,
Right.
But we have to keep proving. Well, let's mention one other thing before we get away from the Tuskegee. What about the Tuskegee experiment?
That I'm not. I know about it.
Okay.
I know
okay.
it was testing on. At that time, we were Negroes.
Okay, right.
That they were tested through, I guess, some kind of venereal disease.
Okay.
And they weren't treated at all.
Just let them.
Yes. And watch to see what happened.
Okay.
And I know years later they won a lawsuit from that. But
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that's enough there that they did win a lawsuit.
Right.
But-
Right.
Okay. Well, let's see. I think you are familiar with a person called Daniel Chappie James Jr.
Right.
Now, who was Daniel Chappie James Sr.? Okay.
Sorry about that. I'm
Now,
sorry.
because I thought he was Navy, but I think you meant he was
No.
Air Force, right?
You said
Daniel
Chappie James. Right. He was Air Force.
Okay.
The first Air Force officer was, general officer, I should say, was Benjamin O. Davis Jr.
Okay.
His father was the first African American brigadier general that was
In the Army.
In the Army.
Okay.
Now, Benjamin Davis Jr. Went to the academy, Army Academy at that time,
Okay.
in 1932. His class was 1932.
Oh, okay.
And he graduated in 1936. And then it was the Army Air Corps. He started out infantry. He got a chance to fly, and he went through Tuskegee and advanced flying training, and he was able to fly at that point. And from that point, the Air Force came into being in 1948. So going from the Army Air Corps to the Air Force, that's how he became the first Air Force black general.
So his father, Senior Bill Davis Sr.,
Right.
was a brigadier general in the Army.
In the Army.
So he got in the Air Force, and he became, what, 4-star?
He became a 4-star. Clinton promoted him to general in 1998.
But you mentioned he passed away the next year.
He passed away in 2002.
Okay.
He was promoted in 1998, and he was
Okay.
he passed away in 2002.
Okay.
So I misspoke when I said a year or two later, but it was actually 2002, so almost 4 years.
Okay. Well, you're
So he was the first one, and going back to Daniel Chappie James Jr., he was the first 4-star African American general, and he got promoted to that rank in 1975.
Okay.
So he was the first African American general in the Air Force.
Now, you received several decorations that I didn't mention. You may give us some of the decorations that you received. I know a person doesn't like to talk about them, but that's the only way we're going to find out.
Yeah, I almost have to look at them myself. The highest one is the Meritorious Service Award, and I think I was awarded that twice.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course, getting an Outstanding Unit Award. I was in a unit that our unit won that award, Air Force Excellency Award, which was awarded to our unit as well, and other things like commendation medals. But I guess the first one, everybody got the National Defense as soon as you graduated from basic training. which was my first ribbon. But while I was in, I qualified, marksman, being able to fire an M16 because that's what we had to qualify with when I was in the Navy. And one might say, why did you have to have a gun? But that was part of the training. You train. I was in a construction battalion unit, and they have them here, and that was part of our training. Every time we deployed, we had to go through field exercise, and you had to go out on the range, and you had to fire weapons.
Right. You mentioned about it's the air refueling planes in the air. That must be a task, right?
Oh no, it's something we've been doing for a while, and we're good at it.
Amazing.
Yes, and we not only refuel our planes, we can refuel the British planes, we can refuel the French planes, we can refuel, Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
That's another country. I mean, basically, we've been doing it so long that, that's kind of what we do. And, we do it because that's how we do it. We fly, and each aircraft that's fitted, all of them are retrofitted to where they can be refueled while they're in the air. And it saves time, versus having to find an airport, go land, then refuel, and by the time you land, refuel, you've lost about 3 hours turnaround time. So if you do it in the air, you just keep doing, and that's how we ferry our fighters over to the European theater, to the Far East. That's how we do it. We go from place to place, and we fill them up, and they keep going. And we have what we call a bridge, where we have tankers that are just waiting to top them off every time they get to a certain point.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Just about the Tuskegee Airmen, they lost very few planes.
Right.
While during the World War II, I guess, right?
Right.
Because they just experted flying, or
they did it so much.
Leader.
That was all they did. And my understanding of it was, they practiced so much and did it so much, so when they got a chance to get in the theater and actually show what they knew, they surprised a lot of people.
Okay.
Because all that training didn't go to waste. They were able to capitalize on that and use it, and saved a lot of aircraft as well, bombers included.
Mm-hmm. I know they're highlighted great in Alabama, but I'm not sure about the rest of the country. But because of the great work that they did.
About it. Being in the Air Force is something we know about it because every year back then it was Black History Week. We always, that was one of the topics, or someone that knew about it talked about. So we always knew it being in the Air Force because it's something that we just know about, we talk about, and they even have a convention every year that they meet. And and we have chapters in different locations. One is out of Chicago here, so I don't know exactly how many chapters of Tuskegee Airmen there are, but I want to say with all of them, they basically, annually meet, in some location. And at one time they were meeting with the ABAP, which was like the Association of Black Airline Pilots. They used to all meet together, and then they separated, and they have their own conventions. But yes, it's not something that's not talked about.
What I usually do on Community Forum is not wait until February.
Oh, okay.
African American History Month, to highlight. I try to do it all during the year.
Right. Okay.
But I get it by bits and pieces, and also have references that people can. Of course, everything's on a computer now.
Right.
You go right to the computer and type in Tuskegee Airmen
Right.
and get the history.
Right.
I attended one of the dinners in South Chicago, I think, one year. But they're getting older now. The
Right,
originals,
they are.
They're up in
They
the
are.
90s,
Yeah.
80s, 90s now. You
Right.
know, see that you are living. So it's very. We might say that yesterday is gone. Today is a gift. We call it the present. Tomorrow may never be.
Right.
You know, but before we end the program, I'd like for you to mention about your wife. I know you love to talk about your wife, and she had a unique position too, right? She's also a retired
Lieutenant
Colonel. You want to tell us
Right.
about that?
Right. Well, I can go back and say we met at Eglin Air Force Base when I was assigned there in 1981. And at that time, I guess she had been in almost a year. And she was the first African-American chaplain, female chaplain in the Air Force.
Is that right?
Yes. And
So she's history too there. Eh?
Yes. They in the Pentagon used to be. Now I don't know if they still have it or not, but it's supposed to be in another museum. They did a painting of her, and it was a part of the history and stuff.
Oh.
But yes,
Repeat that again. The first black chaplain,
female.
female chaplain,
Yes.
in the Air Force.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes, she was the first one. So we met there, and over the years, I guess we pretty much stayed in touch, and we got married in 1993. So
Okay.
from 1993 to now, almost 25 years.
Now, were you separated a lot, or did they work the orders where y'all could be together?
For the most part, I guess we were in different locations, because when I was assigned to Scott, she was at Chanute when Chanute was open.
Okay.
So, yeah, we were at Eglin together, and from that point on.
Now, where's Eglin?
I'm sorry, Florida.
Okay.
It's Fort Walton Beach, Florida.
Okay.
Eglin Air Force Base, Fort Walton Beach, Florida. So, yes. And then when I was assigned, I guess, out in Utah, I was going back and forth, but also I commuted back and forth when I was at the Pentagon. So that was probably the longest stretch, 2000 to 2006. And then I retired in 2007, so that was another year.
Now, when you mentioned Chanute Airfield, I can identify with that, because that's in Belleville, Illinois.
It's actually Rantoul, Illinois. Scott is
Belleville.
Yes, Scott is Belleville.
Yeah, because I'm from East St. Louis.
Oh, yes, you know that. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So I can identify.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about
Now,
Chanute.
Rantoul now, you said is no longer there.
Right.
Now, what about Scott?
Oh, Scott is still there.
You're still
In
there.
fact, the unit that I was at when I was assigned to the refueling wing, which was at the Air Reserve Station at O'Hare, that unit moved to Scott Air Force Base in 1999.
Okay.
July of 1999, and still operates out of Scott Air Force Base.
Well, tell us about you're both residing in Wadsworth, Illinois now, but tell us about Gulfport. How has it changed?
How has it changed? Probably the biggest change to Gulfport, Biloxi, because Ocean Springs, past Christian, Long Beach,
That's
all
that's
along
Navy,
the coast.
Navy, right?
Right. Well, it's Navy and Air Force, because there's a naval base in Gulfport, and then there's an Air Force base in Biloxi,
I got you.
which is Keesler. But I guess the biggest change came after 1969, when Hurricane Camille came through, and of
Okay.
course devastated the whole coast. So having gone through that, that's probably I guess the biggest change, because I think I was probably about 8 or 9 years old, and
Okay.
that was a storm that, for all storms, but
Wow.
others like my mother were still there when they had the last one that come through. So short of that, Gulfport is still Gulfport. It's on the coast, like I said, right next to Biloxi, Mississippi, and they both have casinos. So that's probably
That's a
the
big
biggest
change.
change, yes. And, and quite a few people come through there, believe it or not. And in a couple of weeks, I'll be going there too. But Gulfport is still Gulfport. I mean, it's different in the sense that it's not what it was when I was there, because it's changed a lot like every place else. But it's still home, or I still call it home, a place I go back to.
I first became acquainted with hearing about Past Christian, because one of the TV anchors is from Past Christian.
I know, yeah.
I can't call her name, but you know.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Robin Roberts.
Robert, yeah.
Yes, her father was Air Force. He was an Air Force colonel, believe it or not.
Oh my goodness.
Retired
Really?
Air Force colonel, yes.
Oh,
yes,
boy,
yes.
boy.
That's exactly who you're talking about.
Right. Okay, well, oh, what thunder? Yeah. You mentioned about 14 siblings, 14 of
Right.
you. There's a great number still there?
Only one in Gulfport.
Only one? Okay.
Only one, and then a sister that's in Jackson, which is, only about 2.5 hours away north. Other siblings are in California, in Houston, Texas, and then I have a sister that's in Glen Ellen, and a brother in Oak Park.
This is fantastic. Well, I guess this Lake County area can see why Community Forum is invited you to be on a program, because you are definitely a person, that, and very unique, being when husband and wife are colonel, well, you're a colonel and she's a lieutenant colonel, and is there still military discussion?
Very little. We're not getting paid anymore. Well, we are in retirement, but it's a little bit different. But no, and it's almost like anything else. That was what we used to do.
Okay.
So we have moved on. And,
You used to give,
doing,
so it's no more reflections. Uh-huh.
Not so much. Not so much. For the most part, we still have our friends that, we were, I guess, stationed together with, that we still keep in touch with. But short of that, that's pretty much it,
But community activities, though, you both.
She's AME Zion and I'm Baptist, so that says a lot. I'm a member of Shiloh Baptist Church.
Okay,
So
I'm a former member of Shiloh Baptist Church.
Okay.
But I guess I've never seen you there, I guess.
You have. You just don't remember. We talked, yes.
We did talk.
Yes.
I told you about the memory, huh?
Right. Okay, yes.
I didn't know you as Air Force Colonel. Then,
right. No, you didn't.
You're a quiet type, and I am the garrulous type, this type of thing,
No, it's not something I go around talking about, but yes.
Right. So this is not an experience that you regret. You're proud of it.
Oh, no doubt. I have no regrets about it. The time I served, I wish I could have served longer, in a sense, because I missed that part of it. But it's like a routine. You do it so much, you just want to continue to do it. And like I said, had I not enjoyed what I was doing and all the different jobs that I've had, I wouldn't have stayed as long as I stayed.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I was in Korea for 16 months, but I was chief clerk in my battalion.
Okay.
You know, over there. You know, so I couldn't wait to get out. I enjoyed my time.
Right.
And, you know, thankful for having that experience.
There you go.
At least I had that experience.
Right.
You know,
and living to tell about it.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. You know. So okay. Colonel Roy A. Merrell. Merrell, I keep good Merrell. Merrell, okay. Senior Communication Officer. That's how long were you in that position? You retired in that position.
Yes, I retired in that position. I was only in that position a year. I left the Pentagon going to that position, which is Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio, just located outside of Dayton, Ohio.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with Colonel Roy A. Merrell.
There you
got it right that time. Senior Communication Officer is a retired Air Force colonel, and we've been talking about reflections about his career. Birth, home record is Gulfport, Mississippi, now living in Wadsworth, Illinois, with his wife, Chaplain Lieutenant Colonel, retired Juanita Elizabeth Carroll. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in on another session on Community Forum. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host.